Hello, Internet, and thank you for joining me today. Sometimes this just feels like work. See, normally I watch movies to escape my reality for a bit. Maybe I'm relaxing, maybe I just want to think about something else for a little bit. Maybe I want to just have a good laugh, whether it's intentional or not. But watching Supergirl really felt like work. And I wasn't honestly overly happy about that. And so, yeah, when I heard that Supergirl was going to be this huge bomb, I was like, okay, I'm going to wait for this to come out before I make any kind of judgment. And then it came out, I watched it, and sometimes you just got to believe that hype because this movie was all the ass that everyone said and more, which is really kind of tragic for me because when I heard that James Gunn was going to be taking over for Zack Snyder for the DC universe, I had a glimmer of hope in my mind. I have a good track record with James Gunn. To be fair, I had a really good track record with Zack Snyder as well, but after watching Batman v Superman, I knew that there was going to be nothing else that Snyder could really offer me. And so I was happy at the fresh new face of James Gunn taking over as the head of the DCU. Unfortunately, this seems to be a Batman v Superman level of bad. And I don't say that lightly. I haven't talked about my love of DC Comics on this channel. I don't feel like my comic book history isn't all that great. I'm not very good at sitting down and reading anything. I'm much better at, listening to something while my hands do something else. But in the case of comic books, I do have a love of comic books, American comic books as well as manga. But we're sticking to comic books this time. And when it comes to comic books, in my mind, if you want to read single characters, you go to Marvel. Marvel does great single characters. If you want to watch big universe events happen in front of you on the page, you're going to go to DC. DC has a lot more big storylines going on that are much more interesting than what Marvel does whenever they do crossover stuff. So my love of DC Comics actually goes pretty deep, and they're the ones that I have continued to read throughout the years. Typically, when I go to a local comic book store and I want to patronize them, I look for a DC comic. When I came out last year and went against the tide and said that I enjoyed Superman more than not, I'm not saying that it's the best movie ever. On subsequent watchings, I can see kind of the cracks in the armor, but overall, I still have enjoyed it the 2 or 3 times I've seen it, right? This one, it only took one watch, and I took pages of notes to get through them. And so I'm going to attempt to recap this plot to try to get you to understand exactly how I came to this conclusion. So immediately, right off the bat, I started furiously typing notes. Within the first 5 minutes, I was already sick of the fucking dog. Yes, Crypto is an awful animal. I hate this fictional beast more than I hate almost anyone else in this movie. And it really comes down to, they really kind of lay their cards out within that first 5 minutes, because you have that scene from the trailer where Crypto's peeing all over Superman's face because apparently James Gunn hates Superman, and she's really gross, her whole apartment thing is really gross. But yeah, the peeing on there just immediately took me out of this movie, because where the hell did she get that newspaper? Did she go all the way back to planet Earth with her dog and then go to the local bizarro world, Kansas City, get a copy of a local newspaper for Kansas City, bring it on board that ship, and then leave? There's a lot of things that had to happen in between when that newspaper was printed and it ending up on her ship. And that takes me out of the movie. Sorry, I had to get that out of the way immediately. But yeah, we're introduced to Millie Alcock's Supergirl, which is just Kara Zor-El, one of DC's more interesting characters, but not in this movie, because in this movie, she's a Debbie Downer, to say the least. And she's a Debbie Downer on a scale that would bum out a Holocaust survivor. But I'll get into that here in just a little bit. For now, let's keep recapping the plot, as it were. So the whole thing kicks off with Mad Max space Nazi people jumping down onto a planet where we get a glimpse of this blacksmith dude, and he's made some cool swords apparently. Like, they say, never proving this, but say that all these weapons are really cool, and what were they called? Brigands. Yeah, he's a brigand. They say it 1 billion times in the movie, but I have done my best to forget this movie, or at least, I'm just trying to remember enough of this to make a review. Anyway, so Krim shows up with his brigands, and they're going to take all this blacksmith stuff. Everyone's cool with that. He's going to get the stuff, except at the last second, the youngest son, he's like this little almost baby-like person, the youngest son in the blacksmith's family, jumps out of nowhere and scares Krim, and he immediately reflexively throws a big old metal piece or whatever, his weapon, and kills the kid, giving him that Darwin Award, which in my mind he totally deserved, because you're going to tell me that he saw his sister out of the corner of his eye, but he totally didn't see all the death metal space Nazis from Mad Max? Like, come on, dude. Like, you got to read the room here. But anyway, yeah, the Krem, the whatever brigand, that's it. Krem kills the whole family except for the daughter. That way the plot can keep going, and steals all of his swords and all the cool weapons except for one. And herein is gonna be like a huge rub for me, because the plot, like, this inciting incident doesn't make sense to me. Like, you're telling me that he wants all these cool, space swords or whatever, which far be it from me to be pedantic enough to say space swords aren't cool. I love a good lightsaber, but supposedly these are all just made out of metal. So, like, he gets these, right? He gets all of them except for the one sword that the girl takes. Her name's Ruthie or something. I'm just going to call her Ruth because I don't care to look up her name. Anyway, they take all the swords except that one. And I guess it's not truly explained. I did go back through what I have of this movie and tried to suss out if he ever explicitly says that he wants that sword. And he never does say that. Because what happens next is Ruthie's going around from essentially dive bar to dive bar with the sword, saying she'll give the sword to whoever helps her kill Krem, because she wants revenge, and that's going to be her sole motivating character trait now. Cool, right, whatever. But she finally comes across, the one that just so happens to have Supergirl in it, which, I mean, the way that it's framed in the movie, this is just the first bar that Ruth goes to and meets Kara, and she initially says, no, I'm not going to help you, and then goes to take a pee in her spaceship, and then Krem shows up, apparently looking for the sword, even though that's not like a stated goal, but I'm trying to read between the lines and steel man this movie, which, ironically, Man of Steel, ha 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 ha! So Krem shows up, he goes to get the sword from her, but there's a struggle, and somehow he shoots Kara's dog Crypto, making Krem now the hero of this movie, because Crypto's definitely one of the villains. Sorry, I fucking hate that thing. Anyway, so now we've got our ticking time clock because somebody went to script writing 101 and, just has the hero's journey brought up, like, tabbed. So we got to go through each one like it's a fucking checklist. And so now we've got our ticking clock, right? We now have to follow Kara Zor-El as she runs around the universe looking for Krem because apparently, even though the sword was right in front of him, and our heroine, quote unquote, Kara, is very upset about the dog. He could have just killed that little girl, but he doesn't for some reason. I don't remember how, and the clips that I went through, I could not find a reason why he did not kill her right there. But anyway, he's going around apparently just so that the plot can happen, and Kara's trying to find him. She apparently knows all and sees all because she's a fucking oracle, which I'm so sick of all these movies just having characters that know everything and can exposit dialogue over and over and over again. And man, it's exhausting. But yeah, Kara's our oracle here. She's going to stop us every few sentences and vomit up some exposition about who this is and who that is and how this needs to go out and the history of this planet. Like, she's 23. All right. Again, this will come up later, but she's 23. She shouldn't know everything about the universe, right? Like, she knows everything about Lobo when he comes up, which is almost immediately after they get off of whatever planet she started on. And in her defense, I would want to know everything about Lobo too, because he's the best part of this fucking movie. Anyway, we go from place to place. She vomits up new exposition before finally the movie decides we've had enough and goes to a final battle, which has a green sun and a yellow sun. I'll get back to that, but put a pin in that because we got a final battle to do. We do a final battle where Kara, who was poisoned by the green sun, now has superpowers because the green sun set and the yellow sun rose. And now she gets to beat up all the bad guys, and Lobo's there for literally no reason. And then, we get to the part where, oh no, Ruth is about to kill Krem because he killed her dad and her mom and her little brother and all this, right? And then Carl's like, no, you can't do that because that would be super duper mean and revenge is bad or whatever. And so Ruth doesn't do it, but then she just runs up and kills him, straight up murders that dude. And it's like, what was the fucking point of any of this movie? I'm sorry. I really got sidetracked on this, but yeah. Anyway, moving on. The real thing that I wanted to talk about in this video is just how badly they butcher the characterization of Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl. And they do that because, first of all, they spend an inordinate amount of time vomiting up exposition about how the suns work in the DC universe and how Kryptonians work with that, right? So yellow sun means you're Superman. Green sun means that you're super duper weak and you're sick all the time. And red sun means you're a normal person that can get their ass kicked and all that jazz, right? And Kara's whole thing is that she likes being on red sun because then she can get drunk, which would be fine if she had, more to her character. But her whole thing is that when Krypton blew up, right before it happened, and, this whole race of essentially super Nazis, which is what they are really trying to get into, is that Bradley Cooper as Zor-El is a super Nazi and the Kryptonians were super Nazis. Before that, Krypton blew up, though. There was a big chunk of it that got blown off and had this force field around it. But hey, there was kryptonite underneath it, so everyone's dying of radiation poisoning, except conspicuously Kara Zor-El. Supergirl's the one person. And this is where I really kind of hesitated even making this video, because all of that is conveyed to us in a flashback that is supposed to be in this Kryptonian language, which is cool, but in the copy that I had, all the subtitles for it are in German. And I don't speak German, nor do I speak Kryptonian. So I don't 100% know what was going on there, but I got the gist of it, right? She's super sad because her parents are dead. And, all her people are dead. And, oh no, I'm the last Kryptonian except for Clark, and I can't relate to him because he relates to all these humans, but I know what it's like to be Kryptonian, so now I get to be super fucking angsty about that. Oh boy. Yeah, that's like her only motivation, right? But she's supposed to have like all this motivation around that, or she's supposed to have this motivation that is like, oh, I tried and failed to be a hero. When it's canonical that you're celebrating your 23rd birthday. What, when you were 13 you weren't a great superhero? Oh man, cry me a fucking river. Sorry, I'm getting worked up about this because the whole idea behind Supergirl when I first saw her, right, is that she's this very fun-loving, very young version of Clark, right? And whereas Clark is supposed to be like your square-jawed white dude that, comes in and he's very conservative, he saves the day, he does the right thing, he's the Boy Scout, he's the big blue Boy Scout, right? But then Kara comes in and she's like, hey, I can do things slightly different. And I take this much more hasty approach to the way that I do things. But none of that is conveyed because they're just trying to make her really sad all the time. And I can't take that seriously. Because first of all, you're supposed to be the main character of this goddamn movie. And when you're the main character and all you're doing is bitching and whining the whole time, I don't root for you. I'm like, hey, why don't you just fly into that green sun and get it over with? Like, I'm so sick of hearing you whine. Let a real hero do this. Like, Lobo does more heroic things, and he's supposed to be this badass space bounty hunter that looks like he's following your uncle's Kiss cover band on a tour of the tri-state area. But he does more heroic shit than Kara does. And like, I get that I'm supposed to think that she's heroic because she does end up helping the girl Ruth, but she's only doing it to save that fucking rat that she calls a dog. Sorry, I depleted my entire stock of haterade this morning for this fucking dog. And before I move off of Kara entirely here, because that's most of what I have to say, but I do just got to say that, like, one of the things that DC really tried to push here was that, oh, she doesn't have to be a perfect hero, blah, blah, blah. Girls can be not that feminine and not, entirely heroic, but still do great things. That really feels like it's supposed to be what they're pushing for, but that kind of goes out the window when there's nothing about her to aspire to. She's gross. Her living space is gross. Her lifestyle is gross. And before you accuse me of slut shaming or something, I don't think she has any sexual desires whatsoever, because like everything in modern Hollywood, there's no sex in this movie. Like, there's just nothing sexy about it, period. There's no sexy dudes, there's no sexy ladies, there's no sexy androgynous people, okay? It's all just a steady baseline of, oh, I'm going to be the grossest version of myself, the least mentally healthy, and you're supposed to just think that's okay. And I cannot do that, all right? Anyway. Moving on, the plot and pacing of this is also just horrific, all right? Because the plot moves really slow, then really fast, then really slow, then really fast. Like, again, most of this is just exposition dumping. Like, we wait for Kara to explain why things are going on the way that they are going on. And when that's not happening, they're trying to tell really unfunny jokes that no one in the theater that I was watching laughed. Like, there's nothing funny about it because you've heard every joke a million times, and then it creates an even greater sin in the plot that everything just kind of happens by coincidence. Like, Ruth just happens to go to Supergirl's favorite bar that day because she goes from planet to planet bar hopping, but she just happens to be on the planet that she is on at that time and just happens to run into her. And then it just so happens that when Kara Zor-El needs to take a bus, it just so happens to be taken over by a different group of brigands that just so happen to know about this bar on the other side of the galaxy. So once they go there, it just so happens that all of this, again, this is the whole movie. It's exhausting that, it doesn't seem like A plus B equals C. It just seems like A goes to D because, and you're just supposed to accept that. But honestly, the longest section of my notes here go towards the music, which I'm not a big music guy. I like to say that I have no taste in music, which means that I will listen to basically anything, and sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes the things I like are completely disparate from everything else that I like, But this movie consistently found every song that I personally could not tap my toe to. And it does the Guardians of the Galaxy thing where they're trying to play like a jukebox of these hit pop songs. And it comes off so disingenuous and really just like they're ripping off Guardians of the Galaxy, which is all James Gunn has been doing for the past however long it's been since Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, I cannot stand this anymore. I'm so sick of, oh, hey, listen to these songs while this guy beats up this other guy. Like, it's so played out, and I'm so over it. And the worst one by far, you might have already heard this, and spoilers for the end. There's a cover of Jimmy Eats World's The Middle that's just horrific. It is butchering a decent song and making it horrible. And it's even... The problem is, it's trying to force an emotion on me. It's trying to force me to think that Kara has developed in some way. But no, Kara Zor-El starts this movie off as a gross, overprivileged, whiny 23-year-old woman. And she ends a gross, overprivileged 23-year-old woman. Like, there's no development here. She has not at all changed. And it's made worse because they try to draw this parallel. They try really hard to draw a parallel between her attitude at the beginning of the movie, where she's wearing just like a band t-shirt of a band that I'm sure she could not identify because it's from Earth, and she spends almost all of her time off of Earth. But it tries to signify a change in her character by her putting on the Supergirl outfit. And like, why the fuck would she have that? First of all, like, she says, oh, that's corny, whatever, and tries to shrug it off in like a flashback or whatever, one of the exposition scenes, but then she takes it with her. Okay, cool. Maybe she harbors secret, feelings about like, oh, I kind of want to live up to this. But then why would she take it with her when she's on her rescue mission for her fucking dog? Like, I don't carry around a copy of my diploma when I'm going to the grocery store, Like, this does not make sense why she would even have that. And it makes even less sense because she's the same selfish asshole as when this movie fucking started. All right, that's basically all I have to say, but I'm going to give this movie one more kick in the pants before I sign off here. And that's that Everyone except for Jason Momoa did not want to make this fucking movie. I don't know why James Gunn chose to bump this up. I know the stated reason was that he read the script and, oh my god, it was just so good that he couldn't possibly go another day without making that movie. But I cannot believe that with the movie that we got. Unless that script got lost or burned or something, there's no way, because every other cast member in this movie acts like they don't want to be there. Maybe the actor that played Krem was okay, but it's hard to tell because half the time he's not speaking the same language. So it's just impossible to know. Like, he's always just shoving food in his face. So like, he's not really acting off of anything. He's just walking around a set kind of confused on what he's supposed to be doing. All right, literally last kick here, but Millie Alcock was the wrong choice for Supergirl. She's too young looking. She is very, very weirdly overconfident, which comes off as arrogant in the character. So we just have nothing to root for. No one wanted to make this movie. Fewer people wanted to watch it if the box office is anything to go by. And I, for one, will give this a solid skip. This is the worst movie that I think... Well, no, that can't be right. I watched The Bride. So this is the second worst movie that I've seen all year. I am going to rank this below Citizen Vigilante, which I also didn't recommend if you watched my last video. But holy shit, this movie just fucking sucked. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say today. If you like this video, show me by leaving a like. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. And until next time, sayonara, bitches.